joining me again for this final video. We're almost done our story, and I'm really proud of everyone who's worked so hard in these planning stages. We're going to spend a little more time thinking about color and materials today, and then we'll get to making our final book. We've got our thumbnails and our mock-up, so before we get to drawing, I want you to think about how color will affect your story. Stories can teach us things and tell us a lot about how characters are feeling and why. Although there are some simple ways to look at emotions, such as happiness or sadness, emotions are very complex. Sometimes when I feel happiness, it's gentle and calm and I feel at peace. And other times my happiness is like really energetic and intense. And same with sadness. Sometimes I feel very empty and my body feels really tired when I'm sad. And other times my sadness can feel very tight, stressful, or it might even make me want to throw up. I find that color helps to depict emotions really well in art. So when the emotions we express are complex, colors that depict them can also be really complex. I like to take my time thinking about colors so I can pick ones that will best describe or reflect the emotions of my story. I'll show you some tricks that can help you pick colors easier. One of the first things I go to when I'm picking colors is bringing out collage materials and drawing materials that I might use. I've got watercolor paint, markers, some pencil crayons. I also have different colors of post-it notes, and the most fun for me is to look through colorful origami paper. I love using origami paper because it's so much easier to look at than little pencils or paints. You can see all of your color options really clearly and feel the impact that the color has on you. You can also lie them out next to each other and see how different colors might look together. So here's an exercise that I usually do when I'm picking colors. First, I'm going to think about the emotions that are in my story. In the beginning of my story, Randy expresses that she feels terrible, and because we're lying in bed together, to me it seems like she's not only sad and upset, but also very tired. There's a heaviness in that emotion. So now that I know the emotion I'm trying to depict, I'm going to look through sets of colors and see which ones are making me feel that emotion. A really good strategy is to work by elimination. So I'm trying to depict this deep sadness, this tiredness. It's very heavy feeling. And so when I think of heaviness, I think of a darker color, something that's not too bright. And so I'm looking at these colors here are feeling very light and bright and airy. And so I'm thinking that that's probably not a good choice. So I'm going to take those out. And this one too is maybe a little too bright. And I also see these ones are feeling too bright. Sometimes a neutral color can be good for a feeling of emptiness or exhaustion, but I think I need something that's a little bit more intense for this emotion. So I'm looking through these and working through it, and I'm feeling like this is kind of a better selection to work with. From the purples, I feel really good about both the colors on the ends, but I think the bluer one describes the sad emotion better, so I remove the redder one. I ended up being left with this really nice analogous set of colors. I like how they look together, so I'm going to go with those. Now I need to think about how the emotions in the story change. At the end of my story, Randy and I are both laughing at ourselves a little bit and feeling silly. And finally at the end we both scream into our pillows to release our stress. So I want these heavy and sad colors from the beginning to transform into happy and gentler ones. I'm looking then for a bright, light-hearted color that gives a contrast to the blues. It's really best to put colors in front of your own eyes and compare how they look next to one another. You have to trust your gut on what's working or not. This is why paper is really convenient, because you can move things around really easily and see things clearly, but I've also done the same thing looking at paints and looking at pencils before too. And so as I'm looking through the brighter colors, I really like the bright green, but it seems too intense. And so I tried yellows, and it seemed lighter, a little less party energy in there. I tried the pink too, but it's like the green, it feels too intense. And then I also tried a light blue, but in the end I like the yellow better because it's more different to the purples. I think this will help highlight the change in emotions. Now that we've picked our colors, it's good to test the materials so you know how they'll interact. I tested watercolors and poster paints to see if I could make some really cool gradients. I also tried markers to see if the colors would blend. Then I tested pencil crayons over top to see how well they would show. It was great actually because I found out that some of the light yellow pencil crayons cover the dark blue marker. I also tried pencil crayon underneath the watercolor to see if it would resist the water and show through. It worked a little bit, but it's kind of hard to tell. I also tested collage speech bubbles, and I think those look pretty cool. Okay, so it's a new day, and now that I've tested my materials and I've picked out colors, I'm going to have a much easier time applying them to my drawings. So since we have our mock-up made up already from last time, the easiest thing to do is to copy directly from our thumbnail drawings, and this time just have them be more detailed. Like we talked about before, your thumbnails are like a guideline or a plan, so it really helps you understand the spacing. This makes it especially easy to remember where you need space for your speech bubbles. When I sketch out my speech bubbles, I lightly write in the text too, to make sure that I've given myself enough space. The last thing you want is for your text to get cut off in the middle of your panel. For my character drawings, you might notice I've gone for a more detailed style. This is my own preference, but maybe for your story, a simpler style works way better. It's up to you. Either way, the character exercises that I did before helped me so much to figure out how I can emphasize parts of the faces when expressing emotions. Another tip for expressing emotions is to pay attention to the hands. What hands are doing while someone is expressing something gives us so much more information. Maybe a hand is gently touching a face, or it's a clenched fist, or maybe it's shaking nervously. Try not to have any hands that aren't doing anything. Hands are super hard to draw, but the more you practice, the better you'll get, I promise. Once I finish sketching, I block my mood colors into the background. I love using watercolor because you can cover a lot of area really fast. With more water, the color isn't too dark, and so you can layer color bit by bit to get it where you want it to be. As I move along and the mood changes, I put less of the blue so there's room to change to yellow. I added more blue bits after to make the background feel more explosive too. I went in with a second pass to make it darker. I used a thicker poster paint this time so I could make some clean edges. One thing I find useful is to leave coloring in the characters last. I like that I can use the negative space in the background to carve out the characters' silhouettes, but more importantly, having the background color first will help our character colors look more natural later. Our skin tones and even our clothes and our hair are affected by the lighting of our environment. So if you have a base color on your background already, it will make the colors that layer over top look like they're reflecting those same colors. So your characters will really look like they belong in that environment. Blues and purples to fill in the hair. Even though those aren't technically our hair colors, because they reflect the background colors, it somehow looks more natural to me. I also am dragging small bits of blue into the face as well. This looks pretty weird now, but when I layer skin tone over top later, it will make the skin tone have more depth to it. Skin tones can be really difficult to mix, and I mess up all the time. One trick that can help is to use colors from your mood palette so they fit together more. You'll see that I mixed purple and yellow here together, and because they're opposites on the color wheel, they actually made a shade of brown, which is already a big first step. From there, I can add some white if needed to get the tone right, and even a bit of pink if it needs to warm up a bit. For my first pass on the skin, I kept it pretty yellow, but I can layer more color after if it doesn't look right. My second pass of skin tone has a bit more pinkish purple in it, which warmed it up but also made it a bit darker. Since I have slightly more tan skin than Randy, I added more to my character, and I used this color on Randy just for some extra shadows. Another darker pass for the hair as well, so it would stand out more. I used a thinner brush this time so I could mimic hair shadows. You don't have to color in your speech bubbles if you don't want to, but I did because I love when everything is super colorful. After I got all of my colors down, I started inking in my sketches with a black pen. I switched between a thicker and a thinner one, depending on where I needed more detail. I love having the color down before I ink, because sometimes the color on its own is strong enough to depict the drawing. So for some parts, especially for the dark hair, I didn't even need to add any lines. So earlier, when I was testing materials, I tried collaging a speech bubble over top of the paint, and I really liked how it looked. So I'm using it for the big bubble here. I'm using origami paper again, and it's thin enough that I can see the outline underneath, so I can just copy it and cut it out. I tried looking at other paper colors for the other bubbles, but I don't think they'll look good, so I ended up only collaging for the big shouty speech bubbles. The rest of them I inked in with a black pen. When I got to collaging the really big speech bubble, I realized that I didn't have enough paper left. So I thought maybe it would look cool if I collaged them in using a bunch of smaller pieces. It might help it look more explosive, I don't know. And then after finishing up all the text, that's everything. Well, almost. I forgot to write in the title. It's over top of dark blue, so I used an opaque white paint, which I think looks pretty cool. You could try this out with a metallic pen, an opaque gel pen, or even a whiteout pen if you don't have one of those. Oof, so that was a long journey. Thank you again for sticking with me all the way. I really hope you enjoyed making these stories together. I had a great time making this one, and I even tried some new things that I don't usually do, which was great. So I really love how this turned out in the end. And I love that you can read the accordion book in so many different ways. Like, you can pull it out all the way or read it page by page. You could even maybe put it in like a circle and read around it, I don't know. But if you enjoyed making this book, there's so many other ones to try, so I really encourage you to go and find those and try different book forms. And you can always make up your own. Or if you liked the drawing part more, keep trying new colors, keep trying new materials. That's the best way to learn. And I'd love to see how your books turned out and read all about your own stories. Thanks again for joining me. Bye for now.